Since the 2002 NFL realignment, teams in the NFC West for the most part have been pretty terrible collectively in the wins and loss column. From 2002 to 2012, this division boasted a losing record every season except for in 2003. However, in 2012, the Seahawks and 49ers became Super Bowl contenders as both were backed up by a strong defense. That being said, since 2013, the Seattle Seahawks won the division crown 4 of the last 8 seasons and finished no less than runner-up. The team were perennial playoff contenders, missing the postseason just once during that span while combining for 87 wins, 40 losses, and a draw. And much of that was attributed to the rise of the Legion of Boom and the emergence of Russell Wilson as the leader of the franchise. Seattle's success in the NFC West came at the hands of one particular playoff game that truly kickstarted their dominance in the division. While for some, the obvious answer would be Super Bowl 48, where the Seahawks ran over the Denver Broncos to capture their first Super Bowl title. However, it was in the NFC Championship Game 2 weeks prior that would have a profound impact on the NFC West for years to come. Before this playoff game, San Francisco under the new leadership of Jim Harbaugh won consecutive division crowns in 2011 and 2012 and even went on to Super Bowl 47 where they came inches away from a 6th Super Bowl title. So heading into this championship game, a lot was at stake. If San Francisco won, this would have marked a second straight Super Bowl appearance, while a win for Seattle would have signaled a changing of the guard in the NFC West.
Billy Martin, straight from Brooklyn, better known as Brooklyn. Never taking shorts 'cause Brooklyn's the bomb.
Guys, before we continue on to the video, I gotta take a second to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, Otis, also known as the stock market for culture, where you can purchase fractional shares of collectible assets that you may not be able to afford otherwise. In other words, if you're dead broke like me and missed out on grabbing a Tom Brady or Michael Jordan rookie card, well, now here's your chance. On the Otis app, users can buy and sell shares 24/7 and it's fairly easy to use. I've signed up and gone on the app myself, and they've got a ton of cool cultural assets for users to choose from. Whether you're into Pokemon cards, comic books, sports cards, or even sneakers, you should take a second and check out this app. This is a chance for you to co-own assets that often have price tags that don't allow everyday people to own. Just scrolling through the app, you can see how share prices have fluctuated on a pair of signed Jordan 1s. On top of that, the app also provides users with a more detailed financial look at each asset along with information about each investment. Sign up with Otis with the link in my description box below and get your first free share when you fund your account. Anyways, shout out again to Otis for sponsoring this video. The 49ers came into this game riding an 8-game winning streak on top of 2 impressive playoff road wins. This first was a dramatic wildcard win in Lambeau Field where the Packers defense struggled all game, defending against the legs of Colin Kaepernick. With the score tied 20 apiece late in the game, Kaepernick led the offense down the field to set up for a walk-off field goal for the victory. In the following week, the 49ers traveled to Carolina where the defense came up huge, forcing 2 turnovers and holding the Panthers' offense to just 10 points as San Francisco walked away with the win. Seattle, on the other hand, had a first-round bye, which set them up with a divisional round matchup hosting the New Orleans Saints at CenturyLink Field. This game was played under terrible weather and was really a physical game. Seattle went into halftime with a comfortable 16-0 lead as Marshawn Lynch led the offense, rushing for a $140 along with 2 touchdowns as the Seahawks won 26-15. Seattle went into this championship game as 3.5-point favorites, and there were a lot of really interesting matchups heading into this encounter. As mentioned earlier, both teams relied heavily on their defense to make big plays. Seattle boasted #1 defense and led the league with 39 takeaways, but going up against a mobile quarterback in Kaepernick posed a serious challenge to their defense. Cap was a quarterback who could make a defense really pay. On top of that, you also had San Francisco's 3 receiving weapons of Anquan Bolden, Michael Crabtree, and Vernon Davis go up against the Legion of Boom. On the other side, the Seahawks ride where Marshawn Lynch takes them, and against the 49ers, he was going up against a front 7 who only a couple seasons earlier set the record for not allowing a rushing TD in 14 straight games. They were also the 3rd-ranked run defense in 2013 and hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher all season. That being said, San Francisco faced a tricky road trip up in the Northwest, and this would mark the very first time these division rivals would face off in the playoffs. So on January 19, 2013, the 2 teams took to the field in a late afternoon game. Seattle got off to a terrible start as on the very first snap, Russell Wilson fumbled the ball as Aldon Smith sacked the QB. As a result, San Francisco got on the score sheet with a Phil Dawson 25-yard field goal and took a 3-point lead. Both teams exchanged punts on the next few drives, and it wouldn't be until the second quarter where the 49ers extended their lead. Starting from their own 14, Kaepernick pushed the ball down the field with his legs as he was able to find space in Seattle's secondary for 58 yards, and only a last-ditch Cam Chancellor tackle saved in what would have been a sure touchdown. And it was pretty clear the Seahawks defense were going to be in it for a long day. Kaepernick at this point, early in the second quarter, had already rushed for 100 yards off of only 6 carries. Anyways, after a couple runs from Frank Gore to Seattle's goal line, this set up a 1-yard TD run for Anthony Dixon, giving San Francisco a 10-0 lead. However, in the process, the 49ers would suffer a huge blow on the last play as guard Mike Iupati limped off the field with an injury and left the game. This placed the visiting team's run game in serious question for the remainder of the game, as Iupati was arguably the best guard in the league. On Seattle's next drive, Russell completed a couple short passes before connecting with Doug Baldwin on a deep pass down the middle for 51 yards. The quarterback, while facing pressure from all sides, evaded a couple D linemen and threw a perfect pass to his receiver. However, on the next play, Wilson got sacked for the third time and Seattle had to settle for just the 3 points. On the 49ers' next possession, the Seahawks defense began coming to light as they made a couple key stops, forcing San Francisco to go 3-0. The tandem of Cam Chancellor and Michael Bennett stopped Cap from running to his right, and Earl Thomas made a huge heads-up play, tackling Quinton Patton short of a first down. With 4:20 left in the half, Seattle's offense moved the chains with a couple runs from Beast Mode and a 9-yard catch from Baldwin before Wilson suffered his 4th sack of the game from Aldon Smith. As a result, the Seahawks were just shy from field goal range as a stout 49ers defense kept them from further advancing the ball. The half ended with both teams heading into the tunnel and the 49ers hanging on to a 10-3 lead. The second half got underway with the 49ers receiving the ball, but after stalling in their own territory, San Francisco ended the drive punting the ball. From their own 40, the Seahawks pushed the ball past midfield. Then on a 3rd-and-1 situation, Lynch found an opening down the right and took the ball in for a touchdown to level the score. This was a 40-yard TD run that started off with a fantastic block from Alvin Bailey that created the opening for Beast Mode to shift to his right for the score. This would also mark the longest run the 49ers defense gave up all season. On the ensuing kickoff, San Francisco returned the ball for 22 yards and Kaepernick began moving the offense down the field. First, a 9-yard run from Frank Gore set up a huge gain of 22 yards as Cap connected with Crabtree down the middle, putting the 49ers offense around the 50-yard line. Then on a design run, Cap faked the handoff and ran to the left sideline where he gained another 22 yards. And after a forced fumble, with San Francisco recovering, Cap completed a 26-yard TD pass to Anquan Boldin. The home team would get a chance to level the score after Baldwin returned Phil Dawson's kick for 69 yards all the way to San Francisco's 33-yard line. However, the duo of Willis and Bowman kept Marshawn Lynch at bay and resulted in Seattle kicking a field goal. The 49ers struggled on their next drive as Cam Chancellor rocked Vernon Davis, causing him to drop the pass. Seattle got the ball back, albeit with a questionable running into the kicker call, as many believe Seattle should have been charged with a roughing the kicker penalty, which would have extended San Francisco's drive. Anyways, then on 2nd and 5, Seattle were given a favorable ball placement on Lynch's run, giving the offense a first down. From there, Wilson threw a deep pass down the left for Jermaine Kearse, who had the ball in his hands, only for it to be knocked out by Eric Reed and Dante Whitner. Then later on 2nd down, the away team pressured Russell with their front 4, and while scrambling, Wilson threw the ball away and received an intentional grounding call, setting up a long 3rd and 22. On the next play, Russ got the offense within field goal range as he connected with tight end Zach Miller for 15 yards, and this is where all the controversy would start. After blowing the whistle to stop the play at the 14:51 mark, the clock ran down as Seattle began to bring out their field goal unit. This was going to be a long 53-yard kick for Stephen Hauschka, and the kicker even later admitted that he did not want to make that kick. You can even hear the commentators announce that the kicker was late getting on the field and that the play clock was reset.
Hauschka's late getting out there. They reset the play clock. Hauschka had to be told a couple of times by Pete Carroll to get out there.
And then at the 13:52 mark, Seattle called for their first timeout in the second half after an entire 59 seconds had passed from the previous whistle. This was a critical moment in the game for Pete Carroll because here he was in a situation with a long field goal attempt and his kicker didn't seem too confident in kicking the ball. And in an interesting turn of events from 4th and 7, Pete elected to go for it, bringing the offense back out on the field. On the next snap, Seattle got a free play as Aldon Smith appeared to have jumped offside and Wilson connected with Jermaine Kearse for a 35-yard touchdown pass, giving the Seahawks a 20-17 lead in the fourth quarter. With just under 14 minutes left in the game, Seattle's defense came up big once again as on 3rd and 6, Cliff Averill forced a fumble with Michael Bennett recovering the ball. The Seahawks were now in prime position to further their lead, and on 3rd and 10, Wilson hit Kearse at the 1-yard line. However, Kearse had the ball stripped out of his hands with Navarro Bowman recovering the ball as he fell to the ground. And as the linebacker was coming down with the ball, his left leg got pinned underneath the receiver. Unfortunately for 49ers fans, the referees called it Seattle's ball with the play unreviewable. The problem was that the play was called a catch and a fumble, and in that case, who recovered the football cannot be reviewed. And to make matters worse, Bowman would be stretchered off the field and left the game joining Mike Iupati. From 4th and goal, the Seahawks elected to run, but Marchand lost the ball during the exchange, with San Francisco now taking over possession on downs. And just when you thought all the craziness in this game was over, Cap on the very next snap threw a pass intended for Anquan Boldin, with Chancellor making a huge interception. Seattle would add to their lead with a field goal, and were now up by 6 with less than 4 minutes remaining. On the 49ers' last possession of the game, Kaepernick got the offense all the way into Seahawks territory after completing 5 of 6 passes. And then from the 18 on 1st and 10 with 30 seconds left, Kaepernick threw a pass into the end zone for Crabtree, only for the ball to be tipped by Richard Sherman and intercepted by Malcolm Smith. This was another huge play from Seattle's D that came up big in the second half. The home team eventually went into victory formation and killed the clock and booked their second trip to the Super Bowl in their franchise history. And after the game, Richard Sherman gave an interview with Aaron Andrews that was one for the ages. Seattle would go on to face the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 48 and put on an impressive defensive display as they held Peyton Manning's high-scoring offense to just a mere 8 points as they went on to capture their first ever Super Bowl title. While many NFL conspiracy theorists began to call out the NFL and its referees for some of the egregious calls made, personally, in my opinion, sports in general are officiated by referees, and ultimately, the element of human error will always be present. You can look into any sports games and you will always find calls that are quite dubious. Does it make it right? Not really. Were there more than a fair share of calls that went against San Francisco? Absolutely. But in the end, that's just sports.